Okay, what you'll notice on the far right hand side track going up the layout there is that it's been redirected further to the right, and if I kind of tilt the camera down a little bit, you can see how it kind of opens up from around the wires here and no longer follows the left hand track but follows a straighter path until kind of the second bit of cork there, where it starts to curve out and curve round the corner. Now what that'll allow me to do is move the track that's currently at the left hand side here. It'll allow me to move it further across. Therefore this line here will come across further, and it allows a wider TMD for a longer section, if you like, because it used to taper in quite a bit, and what I'm intending is having the TMD running really to that signal, because the tracks will now be there, so I'll get a wider TMD on this section here as opposed to tapering in earlier. And where that track runs across there, there'll still be a bridge going over it to take the upper tracks round the bend where the kind of tracks lying at the far left hand corner there, but it just frees up a bit of space for me. I felt there's a lot of dead space here, so as I say, I moved the track across. There'll still be kind of embankment building to a bridge of some sort going over the rails there as a kind of scenic break. However, it allows me just a bigger TMD, and when I go up to the other end to show you a bit closer to my plans for the fiddle yard. You'll also see at the left hand side of the screen here that I've lifted the raised section just now so I can do some work on the tunnel mouths. The left hand track there with the new cork underneath it again has been pushed further to the left, and this one will eventually follow. That allows me to straighten the tracks up here, so there's less of a curve out and more of a straight section and then curving round, freeing up space here for more of a detailed raised section to go across where my hand is now. So I'm just shunting the tracks slightly to the left, probably about you know, a width and a half of track, so it's not drastic, but as you can see at the corner there, what a difference in the curve there of the new part and the old part that ran there. So everything will be kind of shunted across. Again, I felt a little bit of dead space here, and I could really do with more space for track up here, because it was kind of getting a bit too heavily weighted to the right hand side. There I've just lifted the section there. I've not had to do too much in the way of lifting track on the upper section, just took some pins out of the blade section there, and that's just hanging just now. And that gives you a better idea of the two access lines to the fiddle yard. So all these tracks will be shifted slightly across to that way, and they'll come out a bit more less of an angle from the tunnels, if you like. That might require me to do a wee bit of recutting of the ply upper, but you know, that's not a big deal. So that's the new track at the top there, and the old ones. It's less of a sweep, but it's using better, making use of space a bit better. So there it is there, and it follows off the same angle. It's a 24 inch curve there using the track setter, and it goes to a kind of 30 inch before drifting into a straight here, and that'll all be moved across. Now in the last video, you recall I used the two words reversing loop. That has posed some problems to me, having the fiddle yard on a reverse loop with electrics and polarities and whatnot, and I felt myself getting bogged down in what was plus and what was minus, and will it short, well I need a decoder and, you know, an accessory decoder for the reversing loop. So I've kind of, to use a pun, short circuited that idea by redesigning this section. What will happen here, I'll just move the curved turnout there, the one that's on its upside down. That will feed into the two tracks as normal, but here there'll be a Y radius point, zoom in this slightly, which will allow the track to continue there, but remember it's all going to be shifted across, and then off to the right will be a loop which will go through a gap in the back scene there and disappear off and loop back into the fiddle yard. That will allow me to keep the polarities all the same. It's no longer a reversing loop, and it works, I hope. So yeah, it'll leave the scenic area there, sweep round to behind where I am now into the fiddle yard, and then it'll re-enter on one of these two tracks. So it will keep the the positive lines and the negative feed lines the same all the way around. So I've kind of taken out the need for a reversing loop module, etc, and all the issues and isolation switches and all that kind of stuff. Because I did have originally, from if you saw my first tune update, it branching off here and going through the hole in the back seat. Now it's just looping back on itself. If I take you down, I don't know if you'll be able to see this too much, but it's all been laid now. Zoom out a little. It's all been laid right the way along, and cut into the side of the layout there, so there's no gap. It bridges across, it's all been levelled, it's at the same level as the scenic area. It's all been screwed and fixed, and comes round as you've seen prior, round there, and it joins in at the normal area that I showed you before. Something else I've been adding to the layout this month is at the turnouts. If you can just see to the right hand side of the dummy point motor there, I've got a dummy point heater, and these are Knight's Wing white metal. I've just sprayed them in grey primer and given them a kind of powdered weather using the Humbrol weathering powders as my 26 goes past. So I've put these at each of the turnouts at the west end of the station. There's one there. Just a quick dust and weathering, just to give it the impression that some dust has come up from the trains that's gone past, some grime and sleeper grime. And you can see that the point motor is weathered anyway. Yeah, you can see that on the camera. So yeah, I think these are just another little, just little things, you know, that that give the extra, oh what's that, kind of, you know, added interest to the layout. Along with the AWS ramps, speed signs, the relay boxes, the cable trunking, the dummy point motors, the signals, the signage, the buffer stop lights. You know, it's just all the wee things that add to a layout, I think. And they take as long just to plan out and paint up and stuff as bigger projects. But it's just another wee thing that I've added to the mix. These modern speed signs alongside, you know, the older LNER style, just, you know, adds to the impression of a railway in constant transition. The model up for review this month is the Class 55, or better known to everyone as the Deltic. The Loco got its name Deltic from the Napier Deltic engine that powered it. This is a Bachmann 21-pin sound-fitted locomotive, and it's number 55018, and its name is Ballymoss. I've been on the kind of search for a Deltic for some time, and I had wanted the you know, the white cab surround ones, but when Bachmann released this, or for this year's catalogue anyway, it's got a factory weathered finish on it, which I don't like. So the chances of me getting a BR liveried Deltic were getting slimmer. So I hunted this one down and I eventually came across it at the Deltic Preservation Society, and I snapped it up for £179. It was the last one they had in stock. You'll see it running later in this video, but as a loco, as a model, it is an absolute beast. It actually weighs a lot. If you look at the front end here, it's the domino head code. I didn't want the 4-digit head code one. And it's got the handrails and the lamp irons. These all have to be fitted. The bottom ones come fitted, which is quite bizarre, and I've fitted some pipework. Now, the way I would suggest you do this is take the shell off, take the body shell off, fit the parts, and then from the inside put a little dab of glue, so as it doesn't make a mess of the face. If you do it by putting glue on the small parts and then pushing them in, the chances of getting glue on the face or the nose are high, so it will ruin the look of the model. So that was the way I did it anyway. It also gives you the option to fit the cab footsteps there, which I did, which just slot into the bogies. This is an absolute beast of a model. You know, it's a big slab-sided model. It's got the 4 vents in the roof. It's got the 6 windows along the side. It's got a massive, you know, cab windows at the side, and it's got the 4 windscreen wipers as per the prototype, and it's sprung buffered. You do get 8-pin ones, but I don't know how they fare compared to the 21-pin. The sound on this is fine. It's quite a hard logo to capture, you know, properly, because of its unique sounding engine. But I'll rate it as fairly good. I'll give a rating of different parts of the logo at the end of this review for you to kind of get a summary of what I feel of the logo. The loco in real life was built by English Electric, and there were only 22 made, and they were built between 1961 and 1962 for the East Coast Main Line between London, King's Cross and Edinburgh. They were housed, I think, at 3 depots: Finsbury Park, which gave their ones the white cab surrounds, Gateshead and Haymarket in Edinburgh. They were either named after racehorses or, I think, regiments of the armed forces. I think the ones that stayed at Haymarket were named after the armed forces, and I think Finsbury Park continued its tradition by using racehorses. So this is a Finsbury Park loco. If I'm wrong, please correct me. They ran at 100 mile an hour with ease, and they pulled anything from Mark 1, Mark 2As to Mark 2 air-conditioned stock up and down the East Coast. And they were kind of displaced from frontline service when the HST came along in 1976-77, and eventually were withdrawn in 81-82. So that kind of puts them on the right kind of location for my layout, you know, East Coast Mainline, Edinburgh-ish. But unfortunately I kind of run the late 80s, early 90s on my layout, and this was, you know, long since retired before you know, the locos that I run came to being. But it doesn't stop me running it. I can run an early 80s session no problem with my layout, and you know, I can even run it as a charter preservation day out. So you know, I will find a home for regular use on my layout. I just love it. My association with the Deltic goes back to when I was about 3, and my dad and mum took me to the National Railway Museum in York, and I sat on the buffer of one of the two-tone green ones. Can't remember the number of it. He took a photograph of me on the buffer, and since then I've always had a kind of affiliation with this loco, even though I didn't, you know, grow up with it in service per se in the area that I live. But you know, it was one that I had to add to my layout at some point, and I will add other ones to my layout, especially if the names are right, and I really like a pristine conditioned one with the white cab. So please, Backman, if you are releasing the weathered finish this year, go and do me a favour and release the pristine one next year. This isn't out of the question because Backman have released the Class 101 in weathered finish this year, whereas they released it in pristine last year. So I've got my fingers half crossed that they do release another Deltic. It doesn't have to be sound fitted. You know, one sound fitted loco of each class is enough for me. As usual standard of from Bachmann. I mean, it runs well. It's a heavy machine, as I said earlier on. It's got the sprung buffers, it's got detailed parts, it's got a nice paint finish, you know, nice crisp edges between the colours, and a detailed cab with a driver at one end. The doors don't slide open, but you know, who really cares about that? It's got two the fuel tanks there, and you know, it's the same at number 2 end as it is at number 1, so I don't bother spinning it all the way around. I do like the domino head code, and it's kind of got a glossy glass finish on it. Unlike the Heljan domino ones, it's which you know aren't as good quality, especially on my class 27. This has got a nice kind of glass panelled finish on it, and the 2 dominoes really do light up well. I didn't want the four-digit head code one for my layout. So there you have the class 55 Deltic. It's a sound fitted loco, and you'll see it running shortly. And again, at the end of this review in a minute, you'll see the kind of summary of what I think of the model. If you've got a Deltic and any comments that you want to make about your model, then please get in touch. I know some people have said that the cab lights don't work very well because it's got a kind of little copper connections on the roof above the cab for the cab lights to work. Touchwood, mine have, you know, worked. Well, I don't really run with the cab lights on, to be honest. It didn't really happen unless it was sitting at a station or in the yard. But you know, there have been issues with the build quality in that particular area. But so far so good for my one. Before I show you the Deltic in action, I had 2 or 3 people last month asking what couplings I use. At the moment I'm just using the tension lock couplings into the NEM pockets. I've not ruled out going to KD for some locos and, you know, some rolling stock, just because of the you know, shall we say, added realistic appearance and easier for close coupling than some tension locks. So you know, obviously I have to disconnect the tension locks when I'm changing rolling stock, etc. And some people have asked me, you know, how I do this. Well, I've come up with this little gizmo. I've taken a bit of track, and I've got a bit of plastic card here, and I've superglued it. I've superglued the plastic card to the underside of the track. I had tried the other way around, gluing it to the underside of the plastic. However, when I was scooping underneath, the track was rubbing against the actual track. So I found this is a better way of, you know, getting in between the 2 couplers and just pulling it up a slight touch, and the couplings come up, and you can either move the carriages away by hand or get somebody to drive the loco away. And yeah, it saves you fidgeting, saves you handling the coaches too much, and especially, you know, the nose end of the locos can have some fine detail in them, aerials and whatnot, and lamp irons. You don't want to be handling them too much, or the risk of, you know, some snapping off happens. But yeah, I'm using this just now until I move over to another type of coupling system, if I ever do. But it just slides in, and you lift it up ever so slightly. It does lift the coupling away from the coaches or whatever. If I show you here, it goes under there. You just lift it up like this. You disconnect the coaches and then move away, and it's done. Hope you find that useful. Let's say I pondered how to do it, and you know, they're easy to make. So, and it's made from scrap material.